Train them, trust them, and let them lead. With your host, Marcus Aurelius.
Marcus Aurelius here with Special Sauce Podcast. Here with a former guest and my friend, Josh Gorra from Destination Driven. Josh, what's happening today, my man?
Not much, man. Thank you for having me on again.
Glad you could be on. It's always a pleasure. So
Thank you.
we were just talking, and we shouldn't talk before these things because then we exhaust a little bit. But we talked a little bit about besides my bad hairdo and not going to the barber because of the COVID-19 and the pandemic going on. We talked a little bit about kind of how people are staying positive during this time. So as you know, we both work a lot with startup business owners, and tell us a little bit about what kind of things you're helping people do to stay positive nowadays.
So thank you for asking. There's a combination of things, but the main thing I lead with, and you've seen it on some of the Instagram or Facebook or just the texting that I do, but it's around gratitude. So there's a daily checklist that I use, but I really emphasize on starting the day with gratitude, being thankful for something that you did, that was a positive experience yesterday, and it helps you focus on that one thing. So it's kind of like cooking, right? If you're making something, you're looking for a recipe, you're only focused on that recipe and the different steps in the recipe, and then you have the final product. And if your mind is thinking the same way, if you're focused on what you're thankful for, it's hard to focus on the COVID-19, or it's harder to focus on what's going on in the news or the negative stuff. Where if I know I had a pleasant experience yesterday with a client or a family member or whatever it is, or exercising by myself or with somebody else, and or people that I'm thankful for, then it reminds me to really stay in that frame of mind. It's hard to lose when you're thinking that way, because the day is going to throw things at you on a constant basis.
That's good. And it's hard to get motivated when you're in your, sweats, and some of these folks, it's, you get into the Netflix binge mode, and,
That's the other thing. Oh God.
Grubhub's bringing you the garbage food from down the street. We talk all the time about setting yourself up for success, right? So if you're at home and you have kids screaming and everything else, what are some ways you can set yourself up for success?
So I love that, right? Because as you know, I got two little girls, and they're a challenge sometimes, right? They're pretty determined, pretty persistent. I start the day and I say, thank you, God, for waking up today. Thank you to the universe, whatever you believe in. But then I remind them to do the same thing. And I tell them, look, Daddy's going to spend some time with you. I set an expectation. They have a little gratitude journal. So I say, write out your schedule. What do you want to do today? And then I'll write it down with them so they see that I'm engaged and I'm paying attention. I'm not just saying, hey, go watch TV and I'll come check on you in 3 hours. Because kids hate that, right? I mean, 3 hours to them could be 48 hours, and 5 minutes seems like an hour, right? So I set the expectation. I write it down with them. I say, I promise we're going to spend some time during breakfast. Then I'm going to work. Then I'm going to come back and see you at lunch. Then we'll go outside after nap time. So they know kind of like what to look forward. Now, the secret is though, right? Or the secret sauce, right?
Yep.
Is you have to follow through. If I say to my girls, we're going to go outside, we're going to go for a jog, and then I don't come out of my office, it's going to be a war zone, right? So it's important to follow through with the promise with them, and I find that helps.
I took a page out of your book, and instead of just saying the same prayers every night, before we conclude our prayers with the kids, I always ask them what they were grateful to God for that day, right? So they have a little mental reflection. How important is it to, even if you're not spiritual, to just have like a mental reflection for yourself?
It's critical right now more than ever. You read about some of these books. There's a gentleman that went through the concentration camps, and he outlived a lot of the folks around him. And the only thing that kept that guy going was the fact that he knew that this was going to end at some point. And he got through something terrible like that. This is a different experience, but there's going to be a lot of depression and different things that come out of this. A lot of obesity, a lot of anxiety problems, a lot of divorces, a lot of those things. But on the positive note, I think it's to answer your question, it's critical to be mindful of the energy you allow around you, of the people you allow, of the news you let around you, because it's easy to go negative. But I think if you take 5 minutes and you spend time thinking about what you're thankful for, you spend 30 minutes doing yoga or walking on a treadmill or walking your dog or going with the kids for a jog or making breakfast with the kids, whatever it is, but spending time thinking like, it could always be worse. It can always be better. That doesn't matter. What matters is right now. All we have is today. You know, we've heard that cliche where they say, you know, tomorrow's not promised. I'll tell you something else. Today's not promised, right? So if you go at your day in that perspective, like some of the realtors I work with coaching right now, that's some of the, you know, that's kind of the narrative in their story in their head. And I'm helping them understand like your value proposition is the most important thing right now. And how you connect with your clients and prospects is going to be the end all, because you can't show a beautiful building and, you know, walk them through it. You have to be able to tell them a story and share with them why it's important to focus on the good things, that, you know, the positive versus the negative, and just be mindful of practicing that, you know, the things that you're thankful for, the blessings that we all have in different variations. So I think it's very important.
A lot of people are driven by routine, you know, and they're motivated people, but they had their routines interrupted. Some of these new routines that they're developing, right? What kind of lessons do you think people learned from slowing things down that maybe they can apply to the new routine, right? Have you been noticing that?
Yeah, you know, at first, I go every day for me is 80 to 100 miles an hour, and it's come to a complete stop, right? And so, but I'll tell you, 2 weeks in, 3 weeks in, I'm kind of enjoying the fact that, not kind of, I 100% enjoy the fact that I get to see my kids every single day, do something with them every single day. I'm not coming home at 7, 8 o'clock at night and rushing upstairs to say goodnight, right? Yeah. So there is something to be said for that. I think there's a lot of businesses, right, are going to change, and for good. I think you're going to see that old school value come back, like making food at home. I mean, when's the last time you talked to 10 people and they all said, "Oh, I made something at home," right? Or they're doing takeout a couple times, but more so now making their own sauce or making the pizzas or my kids love to make pizza. I messed up. I made one day and they're like, "Oh my God, we got to do that once a week." So it's like a part-time job.
Now you're speaking my language. You know, we could get lost just talking about food now, right?
Right.
I don't know why you did that to me.
It's good, you know.
Where were we?
Yeah, right. But spending time with the kids, the old school values, and sitting down at dinner together, and there's nowhere to go. So it forces you to do that. And I think one of the positives coming out of this pandemic is going to be that families go, you know what, we're closer as a result. Let's continue dinner at 5. Let's continue doing, you know, walks after dinner. Let's continue to do some of the things that we got used to. I hope anyway.
Hopefully it's not drinking an extra bottle of wine, because that could be a real problem.
That would go the other way, right?
Yeah, that's it. You know, it's good a couple of times, but it's not going to work out long term. But you know, you talk about values a lot, and you know, part of building our house and part of our whole foundation here in starting your business is ethics and values. When it comes down to things that you read about and hear about, all this negative stuff that you hear, you know, conspiracy theories and, you know, this and that, how do you tune that out, and how important is it to just understand, you know, that you're only in control of your home? How important is that?
It's very important, right? I mean, you have to be efficient about your day. For me, so you're asking me, what I do, I follow a checklist. I don't allow myself to give in or be detracted, right? That's how I came up with the email that I use, joshgorra@stayontrack.coach. There's a reason behind that. Like, I want people to be able to, we're all going to make mistakes. We're all going to have bad days, good days, victories, losses, you know, babies being born and people passing away. But you have to be able to stay on your mission, right? Stay on your goal, whatever it is. So on a daily basis, I care tremendously about what I allow myself to be consumed by. And having a checklist, so being thankful first thing in the morning, self-care. I'll share the first 5 with you. Self-care, working out in the morning for me, if I don't work out, I'm a different human being. Like my kids realize it. Vanessa realizes it. My mom, when I FaceTime her, I'm upset. I'm rushing through things. I'm just not me. And that's the same, I think, because if you're in that routine, right? And whether it's going for a walk or having a treadmill, or having an elliptical, whatever it is that you could do, but take care of yourself first. So you start off being thankful. You start off working out. You make breakfast with the family. You eat healthy. Therefore, they eat healthy, right? They say that the man is the head of the household, but the woman's the neck, right? In my culture, maybe in our culture, right? So it's the truth, But if I don't lead the way, if I wake up in a pessimistic mood, or give in to the conspiracy theories, or the doctors, if they're lying, if they're not lying, it's not going to change. The mortgage is due no matter what happens, right? The bills are due. The kids got to learn something. So I follow my checklist. I follow the gratitude. I follow the self-care. I follow the learning. I have to learn something new, and then be disciplined. Talk about daily goals, right? So I'll wrap this up on this subject, but micro goals, macro goals. Every day I have a couple micro goals that I want to accomplish, and then one macro goal for that day. So yesterday for me, it was bike 26 miles. I got 26-mile bike ride from my house. It came back and it felt great, right? And that morning, the other micro goal was to do 100 push-ups and 3 sets of, different lifting exercises, right? Not to bore you with the details, but I wanted to get lifting done, I wanted to get walking done, and I wanted to get biking done. And those were my 2 micro goals. My macro goal was spend time with my family and talk to 12 different clients. So by the end of the night, 9:30, I was passing, I felt like the old guy on the couch. But I literally took every second of the day. I felt like I got the most out of the day.
Yeah, that's good.
Versus like watching Netflix or watching the news, or, it happens sometimes, right? It's like the water cooler talk, but now it's on Zoom, or now it's on Facebook. It just, you waste a lot of time doing that.
Do you feel like, now you talk to a lot of clients, you talk to people every day, and you're kind of like me, we're like people, right? So like, when it comes down to, what are you hearing from people out there? Like what has been your experience? What's the mood, and what kind of things are people doing to improve that?
I think for the most, I work a lot with realtors right now on the for coaching purposes, and entrepreneurs, business owners. But I'm hearing the common denominator is, how long is this going to last, Josh? Like everybody kind of wants an answer. And I tell them, like, look, I don't have the answer. None of us have the answer. You watch the news, they tell you one thing, they change it the next day. I think it's the new normal. I think several businesses are going to suffer as a result. But I think at the end of the day, it's going to bring people together via technology. And there's a huge appreciation now for human contact. So when it does go back to somewhat normal, people are not going to hit maybe on the invite. They're going to hit accept. They don't care what it is, right?
The baby's such bullshit, isn't it? It's such a,
If it's maybe I'll go, maybe I won't. You know what I mean? But like if you said, Josh, let's go watch Sesame Street with the kids, I'm gonna go. I'm not gonna stay at home. You know what I mean? But it's like one of those things. I think people are gonna appreciate those simple things. But you do hear a lot of, I'm worried about paying the bills. I'm worried about education for my kids. I'm worried about my mom. I can't, like my mom's in Connecticut. I can't see her. I don't want to be selfish. And I said, Mom, I'll drive out there and I'll sit outside. And she's like, you're going to drive 2 hours to spend time with me outside the window for what? Just, FaceTime me. But it still sucks. It's not hard. It's not easy for anybody. So I'm hearing that from a lot of folks. I think we worry a lot about the elderly, what about the young kids and the working families. So.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Family is probably the value. Why do we go to work every day? Why are we building our business? Why are we building everything? Right. So, and family, it definitely is the end game. It's everything. Right. So, you're gonna have to explain to me the head and neck thing, because I like that. So the man is the head and the woman's the neck. No wonder when I turn too fast to look in the wrong place, my neck hurts. Now it makes sense to me. See, somebody finally had to explain that. I know I find myself hilarious. Don't mind me.
I know. I think it's great, but there's a lot of truth to that, right? And if you turn too fast, your wife might yell at you. She's like, "What are you looking
Yeah,
at?" You know what I mean?
that's it.
Right. But no, it's an old I don't know what it is, the Spanish or Italian culture, but it's I was always like the women in my culture are very the matriarch, the
Yeah,
important part of the family. But as the man and woman dynamic, because the women in my lifetime, my mom, my grandmother, Vanessa, a lot of people that I've been around, a lot of mentors of mine, Faye Mendel being one. She's one of my coaches and friends. Deb Nelson, a marketing director I used to work with, became a friend. Uh, Renewed the loving for cycling for me, which is over 10 years ago, which I love. So I have a lot of respect for women in general, but it's kind of like it's kind of like a backhanded compliment. Like women are smart enough to say, okay, yeah, you're the head of the family, but I control the family. That's why they're the neck, right? Because the head can't do anything if it doesn't have anything to swivel on.
that's
Or
true.
work.
That's a good point. Yeah. So
They're very smart. They're smart for a reason.
what kind of businesses right now are doing well? Like I know we have these conversations. You ask anybody how their business is doing, they're always like, "Oh yeah, great, wonderful." you know, but in actuality, like who's really still getting it done? What businesses are you seeing?
You know,
From
I
your
see a lot
perspective?
of I see a lot of mortgage brokers, realtors, construction developers, financial advisors. I see a lot of coaching, a lot of different, a lot of those sectors, the service-oriented
Yeah,
sectors that we're already kind of doing, webinars, Zoom, GoToMeeting. Really, nothing changed. If anything, it made it like it just expedited the growth. But I see a lot of successful people out there, and I commend them, like yourself, right? I mean, they're entrepreneurs at heart and they're working. If you're a mortgage broker, I salute you because you're out there fighting the interest rates, talking to people,
yeah,
explaining the difference, between the
true.
Federal Reserve and how that really doesn't like it affects the rate. But people think because the Federal Reserve rate goes to zero, then now my interest for my house is going to be zero, and that's not the case. So they have to have a lot of patience, and they're being you watch the videos and all the things they're doing creatively, and I think it's great. And then you have, realtors doing the same thing. They're doing the virtual tours and offering different things to do. Construction folks, I mean, it hasn't stopped. You see houses going up and they're still selling. So it's a good sign. I don't know how much of it is going to be sustainable, right? I mean, in the next 3 to 6 months, it all depends on what the deal is with this vaccine and how we develop in the new world.
I talked to a lot of veterans. The VA mortgage is sub 3% for 30 years. You can go 15 years for a little bit above three. I mean, there's financial decisions. If you have the wherewithal, now is a time where you
Right.
could really set yourself up for a long time. I mean, these folks are tuning in. So like, if you're gonna dial into something, why not dial into your financial well-being, right? So,
In
it's
general, yeah.
I mean, how many people are going to have to push off their retirement? Remember that 2008? Imagine if you retired in 2008, right? You had that huge downturn in the market, So, but how independence is a weird thing because, people always have this fantasy about what retirement's like. I've kind of come to this realization that I want to work the rest of my life. Am I messed up? Maybe
Oh,
you're kind of my most grounded friend. So am I messed up? Should I think
oh,
about, or maybe is my lifestyle the type where I kind of live a little retired? Is that kind of
yeah.
I
I
don't
think
know.
no. I think I mean studies show that we need to do something.
Do
That's why you
something,
see a
right?
lot of volunteers, a lot of traveling. Like you can't just go from 90 miles an hour to complete stop.
No.
Right? Like this, if this pandemic showed us anything, it showed us it doesn't work. So if you've done that your whole life, getting in and out of planes, trains, automobiles, and then you get to 70 or 65, and that's it. You hang up your jersey, and that's it. I mean, it doesn't make any. So I agree with you. I think I'll work. I know I'll work until the day I die. Now, when we look at what that narrative looks like for work, and what does it look like in those golden years, so to speak? Do I want to travel? Do I want to spend time with different nonprofits? Do I want to do something to give back? I think there's, to your point, there's always going to be something to do. I think right now you put yourself in a position to do that earlier than later. Because at the end of the day, that's one exit. Death is one exit we all have to take. So I think it matters what we do now and how we maximize today versus let's worry about it 30 years.
Where do you see yourself in 20 years, Josh? You going to be on a vineyard somewhere in Italy with me or what? We're going to be drinking the vino or maybe golf. What kind of things?
I'll tell you, I love that. We send stuff all the time here and there with different things. Come to Sicily, it's free. I mean, you can kind of wonder why it's free, but
yeah,
there's a lot of good things to do or look forward to. A lot of experiences, my friend. Hopefully the next 10 years, 15 years. But absolutely, in 20 years, I'll be 57, God willing, 58. Mm-hmm. And hopefully I did the right thing. My goal is to do the right thing today so it help tomorrow and so on, so that it accumulates, right? I talk about some of the folks I coach and the people I've coached for the last 20 years in different sectors. I talk about utilizing your talent, like double down, forget about fixing what doesn't work, and focus on 1% growth today. That's it. And if you did that for the rest of the year, I mean, how much growth did you see?
Doesn't school screw you up in that regard, though? They always, like, if you're good at one thing, you got all these strengths, they tell you, oh, you know what? You're weak at this, so, you should focus in on, you think education has to change in that regard. I know now we're starting to really examine what goes into school. Now that I'm teaching my kids, with part of my time, I look at this thing and I'm like, this model's got to change. Do you feel that way?
I do. I think there's a lot of great teachers out there. I'm very thankful for the teachers.
I do too. I love teachers, but I think it's the system that's got them.
I think the system has to tweak for sure. I mean, let's take an example, right? So on any given day, I teach my girls about gardening. I teach them, what goes in the soil, how to build a garden, how to make a pizza in the house, the ingredients to make a dinner, sorry, I apologize about that. Different things to do around the house and or riding a bicycle, putting something together. So they're doing different things versus just sitting in a classroom and listening or being lectured. I mean, at pre-K, first grade, I guess it's more hands-on. But you're right. It has to change. There has to be a dynamic where you're actually learning and implementing and discovering what you like to do versus read out of a book, take a test, and show me you can pass. I mean, at the end of the day, I think history has shown us, whether it's Steve Jobs or Bill Gates or, Mark Cuban, the list goes on and on and on. People that have been successful in different rights, and a lot of them don't have, PhDs. They're just very good at what they do. They did it out of the garage and they made it happen. So I think it has to do with your mindset. It has to do with the success around you, the average of the people you hang around with, and if you're educating to that and you're helping people kind of empower them to do that, I think you're right. It has to change, but will it? I don't know. We'll see.
So Josh, your business destination driven. You mentioned you have a mindset group on Instagram and on Facebook. How we pretty much have a link on our website, Special Sauce Podcast, all your stuff there. But tell us about what goes on there so people can check you out through our website.
Thank you. So on Instagram, I have a couple different platforms I utilize. Instagram, IG for the younger folks, right? Well, I'm trying to understand it. My nephew helps me out tremendously. But it's mindset_driven. And that's what I use for Instagram. And I talk a lot about the daily checklist and gratitude is really what I focus on. Because if you build a strong enough foundation and people are starting actually to get it now, it's nice to deploy that and see people now replicate that. On Facebook, there's a group, Start Each Day with Gratitude. That's going to be the name of the book I'm working on. Should be released hopefully late spring, early summer. But that's the goal, right? So there's a checklist, but start each day with gratitude. And there's a group on Facebook that now has close to 600 followers. I just started in late March, I want to say mid-March, because of everything that's going on. I think right now more than ever, people need positivity. They need something that's optimistic.
Nice.
They need a different path, a different opportunity, possibilities, right? Versus everything's negative and there's no option. At the end of the day, there's a lot we can do to control how we feel. And one of those things is having your checklist.
All right, my friend, we come to that point in the podcast where we ask the infamous question, KS2 Salsa, my friend, what's your sauce?
I love it. You know, I'll tell you, I've had a lot of odd jobs over the years, and you know, whether it was a barber in college, you know, which come in handy now,
Yeah, good thing you picked something else.
right?
Although I should talk, I'm in need of a barber myself.
I love it. But you know, taking the entrepreneur spirit and the family values, and really keeping that on top of mind and helping others really has helped me by default. Not because I expected anything, but I feel like the more I give into the universe, the more I give back to different nonprofits or people in general, it helps me sharpen my game, do better, do more, become better with what you have. And I think if you ask me if it's one thing, what is it, the one thing? I think it's exercising at least once a day. And it doesn't have to be vigorous. It doesn't have to be 26 miles on a bike every day, but it could be anything, but something to get the day started, to get your blood flowing, to get your creative spirit flowing, if you will.
You got it, brother. Always a pleasure. And that reminds me, we got to get back at it again, my friend. That race is on for September. That you're probably way ahead of me with the biking, but we got to get back to hitting the 5 a.m. club there. So,
yes, I'm down, man. You know, as long as we do the social distancing, right, 6 feet apart. I don't think we have to wear the mask outside. But
I didn't want to get that close to you anyway. I just like hearing you.
All right, good deal.
Looking forward, my friend. Always a pleasure. Thank you again for tuning in, and we will talk soon.
All right, my friend. I'll see you.